When you were a kid, did you ever have anybody imitated when you got into radio?
I was a fan of a lot of people when I was a kid. I liked Arthur Godfrey very much and Red Barber. I would go back to my room in the apartment where we lived, and I would fantasize myself them. I didn't so much imitate them as imagine I was on the air. I would, for example, go to a baseball game, and go to the old Ebbets Field, and I would sit way up in the back, leave my friends for a while and go up like to the 100th row and broadcast the game to myself. And I would imagine, not that I was Red Barber, but that I was working with Red Barber, and I would do an inning and say, now you're Red, stuff like that. And I always, like, all this has been like a dream, because when you wanted to do something as a kid, and that's all I ever wanted to do was broadcast. I have no other memory of any other wish. No desire. I never said I wanted to be a fireman, policeman. My mother would tell me at times that when I was 5, 6 years old, I would listen to the radio, be hypnotized by it. I wanted to be on the radio. And to have that come to you, and to be doing it 25 years in television and the like, is it's still a kick. I don't want to ever lose that kick aspect of it. I meet some people sometimes, Brian, that say, I'm tired of it. Some talk show hosts will say, I've asked all the questions. I've heard all the answers. That hadn't happened to me. I still get just as excited. Now, some nights you're tired and you've been doing it a long time, but when I sit there and you're about to go on, no matter what I'm doing, that little bump takes place, whatever that bump is, and go. It's just, I've never lost it, and I had it as a kid.
Larry King is in our studios. It's live. It's Friday afternoon, and we all have our favorites. The reason why I asked him the first question is because we have a hard time here. We don't editorialize on anything, except that I will take leave of that policy this afternoon to say that my favorite in radio and this whole business is Larry King. That's not why he's here. He happens to be a very important part of Washington, D.C. But we have a hard time. You do so well at that all-night show, and I'm up often in the all-night show that I have a hard time not just imitating the way you do it, because it's done so well.
They classify you a semi-kingaholic. In other words, you're borderline. For the people who don't know, kingaholism is incurable. I don't understand why people get it, but people who have true kingaholism, for example, do not fall asleep. They lose their jobs. They lose their daytime jobs. Or some have devised methods of living with the disease. For example, they tape the show and listen to it during the day, constantly. Where you see it show up is occasionally in this business, we shift stations in markets, or we go off. In Minneapolis recently, we switched stations, and we were off a week. And during that period, there were people with the shakes and buying long-range radio sets so they could receive it from somewhere else. You can go bananas. Now, Brian, you're semi. You actually do fall asleep before it's over. You're borderline.
I usually fall asleep before it starts, and I wake up in the middle and I have to listen to you.
See if you can do that. That's the way to lick it.
Our numbers here in the nation's capital, 202-628-EAST. We now have 2 numbers, as you know, and the Central and East time zone, call that first number, and the Pacific and Mountain time zones, 202-783-WEST. Larry King will be with us until 6 o'clock this afternoon. And let's hear from you as to, maybe you've never seen Larry King before, or maybe you are an absolute kingaholic and you find yourself now up all night and all day because he's here this afternoon. The phone lines are wide open. Our East Coast lines are full. You West Coasters, a lot of the West Coast don't hear you live, do they?
They do during Open Phone America. That's all live. But the interview portion, like Los Angeles and San Francisco, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, a.m., 3 a.m., they join us. The guest has already left. And from 3 to 5 Eastern Time, which is 12 to 2 in L.A., they hear the Open Phone America live. And then at 2 o'clock their time, when it's 5 o'clock in the East, they get the first 3 hours fed back to them by the network. So in other words, if you live in Los Angeles, you could not call the guest. You would hear the guest on a playback. The Open Phone America you would hear live.
If you wonder why we're doing the Larry King all-night radio show, first of all, he's kind enough to let us bring our cameras in, but secondly, we consider it to be an important part of how Washington works. Some of the most important guests in the United States on any radio or television show hit the Larry King show every night, Monday through Friday at midnight, and we wanted you to see, once again, behind the scenes of how a radio show operates. I'm fascinated. Let's find out how our viewers look at this. Our lines are almost all full, which is not that normal this early, so let's go.